আসসালামু আলাইকুম। চাইল্ড ফাউন্ডেশনের চাইল্ড কেয়ারে আবারও চলে এসেছি আমরা। সবাইকে আমন্ত্রণ জানাচ্ছি। বিশেষ চাহিদা সম্পন্ন শিশুদের পাশে চাইল্ড ফাউন্ডেশন বরাবরই আছে এবং তারই ধারাবাহিকতায় আমাদের চাইল্ড কেয়ার, যেখানে আমরা দেশ বিদেশে বিভিন্ন বিশেষজ্ঞ থেকে এনে থাকি এবং আপনাদের প্রশ্নের উত্তরের মাধ্যমে আপনাদেরকে কিছু তথ্য পৌঁছে দেওয়ার চেষ্টা করি। আজকে আমরা ঈদের পরে এসেছি আবার প্রথম। আশা করব যে পরিবারের সাথে সবাই ভালো ছিলেন এবং ঈদ ভালো মতো কেটেছে এবং আবার আমাদের সাথে জয়েন করার জন্য সবাইকে ধন্যবাদ। আপনার যদি কোনো প্রশ্ন থাকে এই অনুষ্ঠান চলাকালীন আপনারা আমাদেরকে ইনবক্স করতে পারেন। আমাদের আজকের টপিক হচ্ছে হাউ ক্যান মিউজিক ফ্যাসিলিটেট লার্নিং ফর চিলড্রেন উইথ স্পেশাল নিড। আমরা আজকে মিউজিক নিয়ে কথা বলবো একজন বিশেষজ্ঞ যিনি আমাদের সাথে জয়েন করবে ইউনাইটেড কিংডম থেকে। এবং আমরা জানি যে ছোট বাচ্চারা, আমরা যারা বাবা মারা আছি, তারা কিন্তু মিউজিকে সবসময় খুব আগ্রহী থাকে এবং তাদেরকে অনেক কিছু শেখানোর সময় কিন্তু আমরা বাবা মারা টিচাররা সবসময় দেখি মিউজিকের সহায়তা নেয়। কিন্তু স্পেশালি বাচ্চাদের বেলায় কিন্তু মিউজিকের সহায়তা নিয়ে অনেক কিছু করা সম্ভব এবং সেই বিষয়ে প্রশ্ন নিয়ে আজকে সাজিয়েছি আজকের চাইল্ড কেয়ার। আমাদের সাথে আজকে যিনি গেস্ট আছেন উনি হচ্ছে রুথ হপকিন্স। উনি Artistic Director এবং SEND Music Practitioner at Ensemble from UK এবং তার কাছ থেকে আমরা আপনাদের বিভিন্ন প্রশ্নের উত্তর জেনে নেব। আমরা লাইভ থেকে কিছু প্রশ্ন নেব। আসুন আমরা আমন্ত্রণ জানাই আমাদের সাথে জয়েন করার জন্য। রুথ, how are you? Thank you so much.
I'm very well, thanks. Thanks for having me here today.
Thank you so much. We are so honored and privileged that you were able to join us from all the way from UK, and all the listeners and viewers are from Bangladesh and all over the world, and we are very delighted that you can enlighten us in a very interesting topic today. So, how are you in this lockdown? How is everything? How is your mental health?
I'm okay. It's been strange because everything has changed, and as a musician, interaction and musical dialogue is a lot of what I do, and to do that at distance and over the internet has taken a little bit of thought as to how it works. But it's been interesting and it's been creative.
Right. And if you could tell us a little bit about our topic and also the line of work. For example, you are a director and SEND music practitioner at your organization. If you could tell us a little bit about the work that you do and the work that you do with special needs children.
Sure. So Cantu Ensemble is a classical music group, and we specialise in historical music from around the world. And we do a lot of work in special educational needs environments, in schools, in classes, and also working individually. So we devise lots of immersive experiences for children to explore their musicality and also how it can help their wider learning.
So what's your view on this topic? Like, does really music help in children in general and special need children specifically? How is it so useful for these children?
I think music is crucial for everybody in their learning, and I think particularly so for people with special educational needs. I took a postgraduate qualification a few years ago looking into how using music within the classroom environment can encourage creativity, encourage language development, help with physical movement. And there's lots of different ways of using all these things through effectively musical play. And I think what's great about music is you get distracted from the fact that you're being educated or that you're trying to complete a task, and you end up having fun and accidentally achieving things without realizing. And I think that's really like the power that music has, is for us to relax and have fun, to be able to explore new things together.
Actually, that's interesting because in my experience, I have seen in all areas of therapy, if you want to call, whether it's an OT therapist or a physical therapist or like a behavioral therapist, they're working with very young children from the age, say, like 18 months up to 18 plus. So I see continuously their use of music in all the activities that they do. So as you said, it makes it fun. I'm just gonna share the gist of what you just shared with us. যেটা রুথ বলছে যে মিউজিকের মাধ্যমে কিন্তু আমরা বাচ্চাদেরকে অনেক কিছু এডুকেশনাল হোক এবং আমরা যা কিছু শেখাতে চাই শেখাতে পারি, কারণ ওরা ওটাতে কিন্তু ডিস্ট্রাক্টেড হয়ে যায়। ওরা যে একটা কিছু শিখছে সেটা না মনে করে ওরা মনে করে ওরা একটা আনন্দ পাচ্ছে এবং ওরা ওটার মধ্যে দিয়ে কিন্তু আমরা অনেক কিছু তাদেরকে শেখাতে পারি। So before we go on to the specific questions that we have received from parents, do you have any tips and suggestions for parents? I would say, do you have any tips and suggestions for, firstly, for parents because they are spending a lot of time with children at home, and secondly, for educators who are remotely working with a lot of children just like you? Do you have any general tips and suggestions for them?
Okay, so firstly for parents, I'd say there's so many opportunities around the house to find things to use as musical instruments and be creative with things. So I've just got a few things here, like I've got garden canes, which then become drumsticks, or you can play them together, you know, and there's all sorts of things that you can turn into percussion instruments around the house. I use some kitchen spatulas, ties. You know, there's just so much around the house to turn into percussion instruments. So if you can't get out, you don't have instruments yourself, or money's limited, you can be really creative. And, you know, when you're in the kitchen and making food and stuff, you can turn that into like a drumming game or something between you, and call and response. So one person makes a rhythm and someone else responds on their instruments. And you can
how does the rhythm and creating rhythm, how does that help with their development? Like, is there any connection, correlation?
So when children are looking at exploring their communication skills, using percussion can be a really powerful way of creating exchanges. So a child might normally only react to someone doing something, like they hear a sound and they react, but they can't create a response themselves through their voice. Or there might be a child, for instance, with autism who is very proactive, loves making sounds, but never creates that dialogue with somebody else. And you can actually use those rhythms as a way of one person making a sound and then the other responding, and that's creating a non-verbal conversation. And through doing that, you create that contact, which then can evolve into other sounds and into more conversational activities.
And many children that are even non-verbal or verbal children on the spectrum, especially, they actually, a lot of them have interest in music, and that partially explains why that's a way of for them to communicate that they are comfortable with. So that's great. And what would you say for teachers or special educators, therapists? Like how useful can music become in their profession while they're working with children?
During lockdown or just generally?
Well, you can share both, because you know, lockdown we're hoping is going to be a short-term thing. In the long run, you can share both tips if you have.
I would say generally, like during the day in the classroom, music can really be a great way of directing people across the day and framing activities and being able to create a level of focus and fun before different activities begin, and linking musical stories or particular sounds to an activity so that a child who's non-verbal gets more of an idea of what's going on is a really nice way of creating a flow within lessons. I think within music sessions, it's a great way of getting kids to interact with each other in ways that they might not normally in the classroom environment through sound. And then in terms of during lockdown, for me, I've done a lot of work with groups of school children who can't be in classrooms together. And it's amazing how we've been able to do online sessions with, for instance, 5 children in different houses through Zoom. And support of their parents, the teacher can guide the parents in an activity with their child at home and have a pretty similar session to what would have happened in the classroom. Right. So it's been great during lockdown to be able to see how easy it is to recreate that.
Actually, my son does piano online. It hasn't stopped. He's doing voice
Yeah.
as well. And that kind of has helped him a lot in terms of his mental health because in this uncertain times, the music really does help keeping them calm and focused, as you said. I have a question about SEND music practitioner. So some of our viewers might not know what that really means and what that work involves. If you could explain to us what your job is.
Sure. So in the UK, there's two main areas music is used within school and education. So there are people who are music therapists who are specifically trained as a therapist, and they're looking at the particular medical condition of the child, and that will be their focus, and they'll use music specifically to focus on that element of the child's development. Whereas myself as a music practitioner, I go in as somebody independent. So I'm not their school teacher and I'm not their therapist. I go in to create a music session which is fun. And yes, I will know a bit about their condition, but my idea, the point of us being there is sort of to go in without any expectation and to create musical activities for fun and see where it leads. So it's like a blank canvas of creativity. And as a result, often because there's no expectation of trying to push for a specific target, you achieve something way beyond what the teachers would have expected because you're not trying to push in a direction. And with special needs children, there's lots of different things that you can achieve in different places, and it's not necessarily linear. So when I go in to do a session, a child might jump ahead 4 levels on their communication, which they would never have done with a speech therapist. And then the speech therapist can go, okay, I can pick up on that. And we're going to do a musical activity to target more on that particular area. So I go in and sort of mix things up a bit and see what can happen. So it's arts focused, but it's very much in line and supporting the therapists who are there. And it's almost doing the same things, but different outcome, which is meant to be creativity and fun.
All right.
Interesting one because you could, lots of people do either job and do exactly the same thing. Just a different ends.
And you work with both verbal and non-verbal children, correct?
Yes. So we work with children with profound and multiple learning difficulties who would be, working at a similar level to a baby, to someone who's 18 months old. And we do very sensory activities with them and using lots of lights and touching like different materials whilst doing music. Then, very high functioning, advanced musicians, maybe on the autism spectrum, who you'd be teaching piano and ADHD. So it's a really broad mix.
Right. Beautiful, beautiful. And how did you get into this? I don't think I have ever asked you this question. This is a very, very focused and very specific. How did you know you wanted to work with special needs children?
So in the UK, a lot of arts organisations like to specialise in working with disabilities or different parts of society. And I got a scholarship to do this arts development programme, and they paid for me to do this fellowship at the University of Roehampton. So I got to learn how to specialise in working with these children. And also, my dad is disabled. He became disabled when I was a young adult. And so, like, disability and the implications of that in society, like, means quite a lot to me because I have that personal link. So being able to help people become more involved in their communities is something that I feel very passionately about.
Beautiful, beautiful. And thank you so much for all the work that you're doing and even coming today and sharing with us. So without any further delay, I'm going to start the questions that parents have sent just for you. And I'm going to read them in Bengali and then translate them for you. So আমাদের এই ডিসকাশন থেকে আপনারা অনেকেই শুনতে পারলেন যে আমরা জানতে পারলাম যে রুথ কিভাবে তার প্রফেশনে কাজ করছে এবং আমাদেরকে একটু হালকা সে বলেছে যে মিউজিক থেরাপি এবং তার প্রফেশনের মধ্যে ডিফারেন্সটা কি, এটা নিয়ে আমরা আরো সামনে আলাপ করব। কিন্তু সে বলতে চাচ্ছে যে মিউজিকের ক্লাসরুম সহ বাসায় অনেক ব্যবহার রয়েছে, যেমন সে দেখাচ্ছিল যে আমরা বাবা মারা পাকঘরে কিন্তু বিভিন্ন কিচেনের জিনিস দিয়ে আমরা শব্দ করে বাচ্চাদেরকে শেখাতে পারি, এবং স্পেশালি যেসব বাচ্চাদের দেখা যাচ্ছে কমিউনিকেশন পুরোপুরি আসছে না, তাদের জন্য কিন্তু মিউজিক ব্যবহার করে অনেক কিছু কাজ করা সম্ভব। তো আমরা আরো সামনে তার কাছ থেকে আরো কিছু তথ্য পাবো। প্রথম প্রশ্নে চলে যাচ্ছি। আহ আমাদের প্রথম প্রশ্ন এসেছে যে আমার ছেলে গান শিখতে গেলে শুধু টিচার যা শিখাবে তাই শিখবে, কিন্তু আমি নিজে রিহার্সাল করাতে গেলে আমার কাছে বসতে চায় না। এই প্রবলেমটা আমি কিভাবে দূর করব? এবং child has ASD, so this parent of a child of ASD is asking that when the teacher is teaching the child a song or music, he would do that, but if the parent, the mother, tries to practice it with him, she's not even able to have him to sit with her. So are there any suggestions for her from you? How can she achieve it?
Yeah, I think to start off with, I think it's really important that the child feels comfortable and not on show and like they have to perform. So it's like getting them into that situation where they feel comfortable and they're in control of it. So maybe to start off with, rather than trying to focus on particular song that they need to perform, if they listen to music generally and see if they can just feel more comfortable in the home doing music and having that as part of their day-to-day life there, I think that's great.
Mm-hmm.
And then they start feeling more comfortable from that rather than going, okay, we're practicing now. Because I think a lot of children feel that pressure, like, oh, I need to get this right. And then if they can't, that's so inhibiting. Yeah.
তো রুথ যেটা সাজেস্ট করছে যে বাচ্চাটাকে প্রথমে কমফোর্টেবল করতে হবে বাসায়। তো সেটার জন্য আপনি চেষ্টা করতে পারেন যে অন্য কোনো গান যেটা আপনি শেখাতে চাচ্ছেন সেটাই না দিয়ে প্রথমেই ওর সাথে অন্য কিছু একটা সময় ডেইলি আপনি যদি তাকে দেখেন যে হ্যাঁ আমরা এটা একসাথে মিউজিক করব, অন্য কোনো মিউজিক আস্তে আস্তে করে ও যখন আপনার সাথে কমফোর্টেবল হবে তখন কিন্তু আপনি যে গানটা ওকে শেখাতে চাচ্ছেন শেখাতে পারবেন। And even it's saying that the parent is not able to sit him down for it. So isn't it important that the child doesn't really have to sit and learn? Like it can be including movements, making it fun. Learning should be fun. It shouldn't be like we're in a classroom, because when we're doing it with parents, a lot of parents want these children to sit as if they're in a classroom, and it just doesn't happen in the home environment.
No, and I think that sort of almost accidentally doing the singing is sort of the situation that you might want them to be in, like turn it into a percussion game or something.
Right.
And just listen to some music and do some dancing. And if you're standing up and like you're wandering around and you're singing it, that's great as well. Like it doesn't need to be so rigid,
Structured.
yeah, exactly. I think that's really important.
তো আপনি এই পুরো জিনিসটাকে খেলার মতো করে যদি ওদের সাথে করার চেষ্টা করেন, যে একদম ক্লাসরুম বা আমরা টিচারদের সাথে যেভাবে একটা স্ট্রাকচার ওয়েতে চিন্তা করে ওইভাবে না চিন্তা করে একটু হালকা যদি প্রকাশন সে বাজাতে চায় সে বাজাতে পারে, বা কোনো মুভমেন্ট যদি সে করতে চায় তাকে ওভাবে করে কমফোর্টেবল করে আস্তে আস্তে আপনি কিন্তু যেই গানটা ওর সাথে রিহার্সাল করতে চাচ্ছেন করাতে পারতে পারেন। Her second question is my let me read it in Bengali first. আমার ছেলে মিউজিকে বেশি শব্দ শুনতে পারে না, সাউন্ড বক্সের সাউন্ড থেকে দূরে থাকে, এই প্রবলেম কিভাবে দূর করা যায়? So her son doesn't like too loud music, so wouldn't sit close to a sound box, has to be further away, so there's sound sensitivity. How do we work with that?
I think you need to be really aware about the things that they're sensitive to are, because often it's not music generally, it's a specific sort of sound. So when they do react to it, is it because it's a high pitched sound or a low pitched sound? Is it particular tone qualities, like a metal instrument, that ting sound might trigger them? So it's nothing to do with music as a whole, and it's about a particular noise. So then being aware when you're playing music that you don't have those sounds too dominant is important. We run workshops, we play recorders, for instance, and some children love high recorders but the low ones, they don't, and vice versa. You know, every child is different. So we need to see their reaction, and if they're starting to seem to be triggered, just turn that off and say, well, let's use something else.
Right. And even with kids on the spectrum, it's very different. Like you often assume that they would have sound sensitivity, but then there are children I've seen in my son's school who would be dancing away where there's DJ blasting music. So the assumption we usually have is that they probably don't like loud music or don't like music altogether. But it's important to understand what part is actually causing them to be sensitive. That's very good point.
And also what's interesting is often the children who are sound sensitive really love music, and it's almost like they've got specific tastes. So it's like they're more fussy than we are. And if you think about it in that way, we want to have the nicest sound for them and turn it into sort of like positive way of thinking about it. It's them being discerning, actually. Then you're not stopping them from being able to enjoy the music as well.
So she should explore different types of sounds and see which ones really work with the child.
Totally.
All right.
Exactly.
And that's how us grown-ups are too. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
I cannot stand metal, you know, like, or say like somebody loves hip hop and somebody doesn't. So that's how, you know, preference is there. So we have to kind of dig deeper.
So if they have a really strong reaction to music, I would say to start off with, choose really different music. So for instance, having some really soothing classical flute music, see whether they like that, and have the volume quite low, but it's really relaxing, and compare their reaction to, you know, some hip hop with a really strong beat. Some kids absolutely love rhythm, and they don't want to listen to music which doesn't have a strong regular beat. Whereas others, that might be the thing that's too much for them. So something that's more soothing and more lullaby-like to start off and comfortable with those sorts of sound will then be their access point to other types of music. Because it's also acclimatizing yourself to it. And some children might not like something at all to start off with, but that's because it's new. Actually, having enabled them to listen to it from a distance where they feel safe, then they become inquisitive and they do like it after a little while. So we mustn't be too black and white about how it might be how someone's feeling about something else, which means it isn't appropriate.
Right.
So I think keeping an open mind is important.
তো রুথ যেটা সাজেস্ট করছে যে অনেক ক্ষেত্রে আমরা যখন সাউন্ড সেন্সিটিভিটি প্রবলেমটা দেখি, এটা কিন্তু তারা যে মিউজিকের কোনো কোনো পুরোটা মিউজিকের জন্য তারা সেন্সিটিভ হচ্ছে সেটা কিন্তু হয় না। হয়তো এমন হতে পারে যে কোনো স্পেসিফিক শব্দ, যেটা ওরা বলে যে হয়তো গানটিতে কোনো মেটালের কোনো সাউন্ড আছে বা কোনো স্পেসিফিক একটা সাউন্ড আছে যেটাতে ওর সেন্সিটিভিটি। তো সেটা আমাদের বুঝে নেওয়ার জন্য ওকে বিভিন্ন ধরনের মিউজিক শুনিয়ে দেখতে হবে। এবং ও যেটা বললো যে আমরা অনেক সময় বাচ্চারা কিন্তু রিঅ্যাক্ট করে যখন নতুন কিছু শোনে। তো দেখা যাচ্ছে যে অনেক বাচ্চারা রিদম পছন্দ করে কিন্তু মেলোডি পছন্দ করে না। তো আমরা সেই ক্ষেত্রে কিছু হালকা খুব সুদিং মিউজিক দিয়ে শুরু করতে পারি, দেখতে পারি যে ওর অল্প শব্দ দিয়ে যে ওর কেমন লাগছে। এবং এটা আস্তে আস্তে কিন্তু যেটা ও বললো যে ক্লাইমেট ইয়ে করা, মানে ওকে ইউজ টু করা দিতে হবে। তো একবারেই যে ও সব ধরনের শব্দে ইউজ টু হয়ে যাবে তা না, আমরা ধীরে ধীরে কিন্তু কাজ করতে পারি। আর অনেক ক্ষেত্রে দেখা যায় যে সাউন্ড সেন্সিটিভিটিটা হয়ে থাকে একটা প্রেফারেন্সের মতো, হয়তো ওই ধরনের গান বা ওই ধরনের গানের শব্দ ওর ভালো লাগছে না। তো এই জিনিসগুলো যদি আমরা একটু খেয়াল রাখি এবং আস্তে আস্তে আমরা যদি ওকে এটা এক্সপোজ করি, তাহলে দেখা যাবে অনেক ক্ষেত্রে এই ব্যাপারটা কিন্তু আপনার দূর হয়ে যেতে পারে। অলরাইট, সো দ্য নেক্সট কোয়েশ্চেন, পরবর্তী প্রশ্ন হচ্ছে মিউজিক বা টোনের মাধ্যমে কি স্পিচ দিলে বা নন ভার্বাল বাচ্চাদের কথা বলানো যাবে? সোশ্যাল কমিউনিকেশন, আচ্ছা আমি এই পার্টে পরে আসছি। So the first question is from a parent of a 12-year-old and has ASD, and the question is that music or using tonation, different tone, could that help in speech delay for non-verbal kids, and could that help them?
Totally. This is what I did my main study for my postgraduate in, because I'm a singer in training. So singing is really fascinating for me. So I think starting off, if the child is completely nonverbal, thinking about how you can copy their sounds back to them as you would, you know, with a baby, playing games like copying and seeing how they respond to your reaction of them copying and turning it into a back and forth. So for instance, if you copy them several times and they start realizing that you're directly copying them, you then do something different and then they may copy you back. And creating that sort of game of tennis across is interesting and encouraging that interaction that are the opening stages of communication. And then you can evolve it further by using sort of songs which signify different things. I work with a fantastic book that I can give you the details of, which has activities. Yeah. Got it here just now. I use this in the classroom quite a lot.
What is it? Tuning in music.
Tuning in, yeah. And it's in English, but you'd very easily be able to change the lyrics to do it in whichever language you preferred. But there's lots of activities to do with how are you feeling today, and you've got response, you know, happy, happy. Then someone might not be able to say happy, but they the word, and they can sing that as a response, for instance. And there's lots of different activities like that. So even if someone isn't able to create those words physically, they're still able to be part of that interaction.
And you have seen a lot of success in using this with nonverbal children, would you say, over the years?
Yeah, I mean, in my studies, I did lots of work with nonverbal ASD children, and some of them went from literally not sitting still in the class, and you were thinking, then this is not their thing. They're not interested in music. And we did once a week lessons for 30 weeks across a school year. And by the end of that year, there were 2 children in particular who would sing responses. I would sing a melody like, ah, and they would respond, ah. Then they took control of it. They would do it, and I would respond to them, just like I said. And the teachers were amazed. They were like, how on earth has this happened? Like, they've never had an interactive event like that happen. They're always proactive. They make a noise. Like, it was definitely...
and that's a communication. That's not language per se, but that's a communication. Like,
oh, and that's so it's very similar to in the UK, we have something called intensive interaction, which speech therapists would do. And it's very similar to that, but using specific musical sounds, which are maybe more engaging than doing like general noises, that because it's it turns into more of a game. So that's why singing, I think, can be a really great aid to the conversation, because again, it's more of a game, it's a fun activity, and you don't feel you're on the spot being tested.
And you would say, as you suggested, that book, Tuning in Music book, parents are able to also do these kind of exercises and still be benefited for the children?
Yeah, totally. And the great thing about this book, there's a website that you can go to which has backing tracks. So the book's got the actual sheet music inside it, but you can download the music yourself and play it at home and sing along with the tracks.
তো রুথ যেটা বলছে যে মিউজিকের মাধ্যমে আসলে স্পিচ ডিলে বা নন ভার্বাল বাচ্চাদের সাথে অবশ্যই কাজ করা যায়। এই কাজটা নিয়ে সে আসলে পড়াশোনা করেছে, এবং যেটা সে একটা এক্সাম্পল দিল যে একটা ক্লাসরুমে যেখানে একটা গ্রুপ অফ বাচ্চাদের সাথে সে কাজ করছিল 30 সপ্তাহে একদিন ক্লাস দেওয়ার পর যে বাচ্চাটি বসেও থাকতো না বা শুধু নিজে নিজে শব্দ করতো, সে একটা পয়েন্টে কিন্তু আরেকটা বাচ্চার সাথে, যেটা ও ডেমনস্ট্রেট করে দেখালো, যে একটা কল এন্ড রেসপন্স, ও একটা গান গেয়ে দেখালো এবং আরেকটি বাচ্চা ওটাতে রেসপন্স করলো। তো অবশ্যই ননভার্বাল বাচ্চাদের জন্য এটা খুবই উপকারী, কারণ এটাও একটা মাধ্যম হতে পারে তাদের ব্যবহার করার জন্য, আমাদের সাথে কমিউনিকেট করার জন্য। So the second part of her question is social communication development. Would music help in social communication? যে সোশ্যাল কমিউনিকেশনের ব্যাপারে মিউজিক কোনো উপকারিতা আছে কিনা? So you kind of brought it up with those 2 students. So social communication, how can music help children do that?
I mean, another example with some children who were more advanced, they would never do an interactive activity with someone else. And normally in lessons, they'd be like, great, I've got the drum, I'm playing the drum. And they might sing on their own along with them playing the drum, but there would be no interaction with another child within that group. And we'd have to go around the class one at a time for them to do their activity. And there were two children similarly who behaved like that, who loved one of the songs that we were performing, and sort of by accident, without realizing, they both started at the same time. And I dropped out and stopped playing the piano, and one of them was playing the drums and singing the song, and the other one played the shakers with them, like the maracas, and they sang the whole song together completely in time. And they were listening out for each other, and they realized they were playing together in a team, and they would never have done something like that in the playground. But because they loved the song, it became a team activity. And that was really wonderful to see, because the music gave them a common ground and a common language. They both loved that thing, to be able to interact in a way that they felt comfortable with. And I think that's a really great example. It's all about making them feel comfortable and in a space that they want to do those things.
I actually saw that happen with my own child in a drama camp. So my son is very much into acting, and he has issues making friends. Like, he has social communication issue, as in it's not easy for him to go and approach somebody like, hey, would you like to play with me? But because it was common interest, he bonded with this one particular kid, and they're still friends. They keep in touch. So as you said, the common interest, and so many of the kids that are on the spectrum have this common interest in music, that it can be a great tool to have that social interactions, because we can do play dates and they might not interact at all. But as you said, one favorite song can bring them together. So that's a great example that you shared. So Ruth যেটা বলছিল যে সোশ্যাল কমিউনিকেশনের ব্যাপারে অবশ্যই সাহায্য হতে পারে, ওটার এক্সাম্পল হিসেবে সে আরেকটি ক্লাসরুমে যে দুটো বাচ্চা কখনোই দেখা যেত কোনোভাবে একসাথে কাজ করছে না, কিন্তু একটা পছন্দের গানে তারা দুজন একসাথে দেখা গেল পুরা গানটা গেয়েছে এবং তারা তবলা বাজিয়েছে। সো এখানে দেখা যাচ্ছে যে যেহেতু ওদের একটা কমন ইন্টারেস্ট আছে, ওটার জন্য সোশ্যাল কমিউনিকেশন মিউজিকের মাধ্যমে তারা করতে পেরেছে। তো এই ক্ষেত্রে অবশ্যই সোশ্যাল কমিউনিকেশন ব্যাপারে মিউজিক সাহায্য করবে। আপনারা যদি বাচ্চাদেরকে বিভিন্ন অ্যাক্টিভিটিতে নিয়ে যান যেখানে অন্য বাচ্চারাও আছে যে মিউজিক করছে, তখন দেখা যাবে ওই ক্ষেত্রে কিন্তু যে বাচ্চাটা সোশ্যাল কমিউনিকেশনে হয়তো অন্য ক্ষেত্রে খেলতে চাইবে না, যেহেতু তার মিউজিক পছন্দ, সে কিন্তু আরো আগ্রহ নিয়ে সোশ্যাল কমিউনিকেশন করতে ইচ্ছা প্রকাশ করবে। দ্য নেক্সট কোয়েশ্চেন, পরবর্তী প্রশ্ন হচ্ছে, আমার বাচ্চা গান খুব পছন্দ করে, তাকে গান ছেড়ে দিলে তার সাথে লিপসিং করে, ট্রাই করে, কিন্তু স্পিচ ডিলের কারণে গানগুলো কন্টিনিউ করতে পারে না এবং মিনিংলেস ভাবে করে। এক্ষেত্রে আমি কিভাবে তাকে মিউজিক শেখাতে পারবো? So this child is 10 years old with ASD and is saying he loves music, and if I play a song, he would play along with the song and try to sing it, lip sing it, but because of speech delay or unclear speech, cannot continue, or it just sounds very meaningless. How can I help? Any tips for this parent?
Okay, so several things. Firstly, I would say if they can't quite sing it right, it doesn't matter.
That's okay.
And as long as you make them feel comfortable that that's their way of singing it, and that's equally valid, that's great, because they can enjoy it, they can communicate with it in their own way, and they can put all the feeling they want to in the way they convey it, even if they can't quite get the words right. Like, there's so much more to music than just verbal communication. So that's my first thing, that if they want to be better at doing that and they feel frustrated that they can't keep up, for instance, if you're using YouTube videos, there's a great option. If you click on the settings, you can slow down the song.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
So if you click on there's like a cog picture in the corner. It asks you what speed you want it, and you can put it to 50% speed or 70%, 120% if it's too slow for you. And it doesn't change the pitch, but it changes it. And I've worked with a lot of pupils when they can't quite keep up. Even making it 90% just gives you that little bit more time. And you don't really realise that it's been changed. So that's a nice trick, just to give you a bit more freedom. And so much is on YouTube that you can try lots of really good songs there.
যেটা বলতে চাচ্ছে হচ্ছে প্রথমত ও যদি পুরোপুরি ভাবে গানটিকে গেতেও না পারে তাহলে কোনো সমস্যা নেই, কারণ গানের মধ্যে যে শুধু কথাগুলো পরিষ্কারভাবে বলতে হবে সেটাই কিন্তু নেই। গানের মাধ্যমে সে কিন্তু অনেক কিছু করতে পারছে, সে কমিউনিকেট করতে পারছে, সে নিজেকে আনন্দ দিতে পারছে। তো ওটা মাথায় রাখতে হবে যে একদম যেভাবে গানটা আছে ওভাবেই যে করতে পারতে হবে, এই প্রেশারটা যেন বাচ্চা ফিল না করে। আরেকটা যেটা ট্রিক আছে সেটা বাসায় ব্যবহার করাও সম্ভব, যেটা বললো আমিও আগে জানতাম না, যে ইউটিউবে যে গানের ভিডিওগুলো আছে ওগুলো ওখানে একটা ঘড়ির বাটন আছে, ওখানে যে গানটাকে স্লো করে দেওয়া যেতে পারে। এই ক্ষেত্রে যদি বাচ্চা দেখা যাচ্ছে যে যেহেতু সে গান পুরো গেতে পারছে না সেটার জন্য সে ফ্রাস্ট্রেটেড হয়ে যাচ্ছে বা সে কষ্ট পাচ্ছে যে আমি কেন পাচ্ছি না, তখন কিন্তু গানগুলো আমরা একটু স্লো করে ওকে আস্তে আস্তে শিখিয়ে দিতে পারি এবং সে প্র্যাকটিস করতে পারে। বাট যেটা মাথায় রাখতে হবে যে তার সে যেন গানটাকে ব্যবহার করে সে যেন আনন্দ পায়, এটাকে যেন কোনো ধরনের আমরা এভাবে করি না যে তার একদম পারফেক্ট করে সবকিছু ঠিক মতো বলে গেতে হবে। সে যে গেতে চাচ্ছে যেভাবেই গাচ্ছে ওটাকেও আমাদেরকে মেনে নিতে হবে। তো পরবর্তী প্রশ্ন হচ্ছে, আমার মেয়ে গানের ব্যাপারে খুবই আগ্রহী, গান শিখলে কি স্পিচের ক্ষেত্রে কোনো ইমপ্রুভমেন্ট বা আইকিউ কি শার্প হবে কিনা? So this is a 11-year-old child's parent asking with ASD that my daughter loves music and is very interested in music. So if I teach her how to sing, would the speech benefit, and would the IQ be any sharper? So I guess we've been talking about it, but I guess if you have anything else to add in terms of IQ or like brain development, I asked you before as well. If anything you missed out, you can add.
Yeah, I think the important thing is that the children feel like they're progressing and exploring things as soon as possible. So being able to use music as early on as possible as an extra sort of educational aid is really important, because there's been research to show that like a child having had music lessons for even a year, it changes their brain function. They do scans, and the music is this way of lighting up all different parts of your brain and creating connections and strengthening connections uniquely among all the arts. So definitely getting it involved in the way you work with your child from an early age has been seen to have proven benefits. How exactly it affects IQ, I wouldn't be able to say.
Well, even pregnant women are recommended to listen to music and be near music, and like it's there's no like you can start as early as that, but even for younger children, would you suggest with disability or no disability, like how young should parents really keep the music part of the growing up for them to be benefited? Like how would you suggest that?
I think that music should be there right from the start, and they say from the mother's heartbeat in the womb, that's your first experience of rhythm, and that's why rhythm is so important to us. And when you're even like with a baby, just copying the sounds of them, just making like little noises, that's a musical interaction. And having music on in the background, for instance, just is getting them to listen to those different things and create those connections. So I think early on it's important. Particularly, there's a charity I work with in the UK where I work with blind and partially sighted children, and their approach is that just because someone can't see doesn't mean they shouldn't be able to develop an understanding of different options and choice. And there's been research that it's very important at a young age to be able to distinguish between different things to make a choice, because that affects how the brain develops. So I go in and do sessions with them, with very young children, so that although they can't differentiate between colour, or it's harder to differentiate between shape, if you have a metallic sound and a wooden sound, they can choose a preference between those instruments when you shake them at them, and that is developing their brain in, like, it seems a very simple way, but a very important way that they wouldn't have access to if you didn't use music and sound in that way with them. So it's crucially important, and I think
it's scientifically proven that it has, effect on the development of the brain, as you said. So.
Yeah, and it doesn't need to be something that's really high-level music. You don't have to be a professional performer for those benefits to happen. And so my job is to go into schools and to go into families' homes and teach them how to use these activities. And it can be very simple things, but that empowers someone to do that day to day.
So this child is 11 years old, and because it's so interested, so the parent should definitely try to see whether she would be interested in, being in a music class or even listening to music. Would that be beneficial, or would you say?
Really exploring what different sorts of music that they like, because there's so many different things and those different sounds, different interactions and different experiences. And even the different quality of different instruments expands the way you think about music. And then I would encourage them, if they're able to maybe explore different sorts of sounds in making their own instruments at home, and seeing what musical sounds there are around the house.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Yeah,
great.
they can go on and play an instrument if they like.
তো রুথ, আপনারা যেটা শুনলেন যে অনেক কিছু বললো যে বাচ্চাদের ব্রেন ডেভেলপমেন্ট, যেটা প্রশ্নটা ছিল যে আইকিউ শার্প হবে কিনা, এটা আসলে বিভিন্ন গবেষণার মাধ্যমে দেখা গেছে যে যত তাড়াতাড়ি আমরা মিউজিকের ব্যাপারটা বাচ্চাদের লাইফে রাখতে পারবো, দেখা গেছে যে স্ক্যানের মাধ্যমে দেখা গেছে যে মিউজিক কিভাবে ইম্প্যাক্ট করে ব্রেন ডেভেলপমেন্টের ব্যাপারে। অবশ্যই এটার অনেক বেনিফিট আছে, এবং বিভিন্ন ভাবে আপনি বাচ্চাকে এনকারেজ করতে পারেন। যেহেতু সে গানের ব্যাপারে এতই আগ্রহী, আপনি তাকে যদি সে গান শিখতে চায় অবশ্যই তাকে দেওয়া উচিত। এছাড়াও বাসার ভেতরেও, এখন যেহেতু আমরা জানি লকডাউনের সিচুয়েশন, বাসার ভেতরেও সে যদি বিভিন্ন ধরনের সাউন্ড কিভাবে করা যায়, বিভিন্ন কি কি ইনস্ট্রুমেন্ট আছে সেগুলো নিয়ে যদি সে এক্সপ্লোর করে, তাহলেও কিন্তু তার অবশ্যই অনেক বেনিফিট সে পাবে। এবং এই ক্ষেত্রে যেটা একটা এক্সাম্পল রুথ বললো যে সে একটা চ্যারিটির সাথে কাজ করে, যেখানে অন্ধ এবং কানে শুনতে পায় না তাদের সাথে, সরি, অন্ধ যারা আছে তাদের সাথে যখন তার সে কাজ করেছে, মিউজিক ব্যবহার করেছে, যে বিভিন্ন শব্দ যখন তারা চুজ করতে পেরেছে যে এটা এক ধরনের শব্দ, এটা আরেক ধরনের শব্দ, সেই ক্ষেত্রে তাদের ব্রেইন ডেভেলপমেন্টে অনেক সহায়তা করেছে। তো আমরা দেখতে পাচ্ছি যে মিউজিক ব্যবহার করে বাচ্চাদের স্পিচ দিলে থেকে শুরু করে অনেক কিছু ডেভেলপমেন্ট করা সম্ভব, এবং প্যারেন্টস হিসেবেও আমরা কিন্তু বাসায় ওইটা নিয়ে কাজ করতে পারি। এবং আরেকটি, I guess you can suggest the same book to her as well that you suggested in the previous question. বেশ কিছু অনলাইনে আমরা রিসোর্স নিতে পারি, যেখান থেকে আমরা জানবো যে কিভাবে ছোট বাচ্চা থেকে শুরু করে বড় বাচ্চাদের জন্য মিউজিক ব্যবহার করা যেতে পারে। পরবর্তী প্রশ্ন হচ্ছে, আমার বাচ্চার স্পিচ ডিলে আছে, সে গান শুনতে খুব পছন্দ করে, আমি কিভাবে গান শিখাতে পারি আমার বাচ্চাকে? So it's a very similar question. Age is 12, the child has speech delay, loves to listen to music. All the parents are asking is, how can I teach my son or daughter how to sing? So I guess because of the lockdown, like this is probably more a relevant question, like how can parents teach their children music or songs? So do you have any easy trick in your hand that parents can just overnight become music teachers? Because some of us have harder time grasping this concept. So any
well, I think the key thing is just it should be fun and just feel comfortable having a go. So I think to start off with singing, if you're comfortable singing yourself, just singing around the house and turning an activity into a song, as you're walking up the stairs, just making up a little tune to go up the stairs. It doesn't need to be anything specific. You could gradually go la, 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 as you go up each step. And that's just encouraging people to use their voice, and just as you take a step each time, sing a different note. Anything like that is just encouraging them to use their voice and feel comfortable with it. Then, if you're singing songs as a family and they hear it regularly, they may just catch on to it, and it can be as simple as that. Or the regularity of listening to the same pieces of music, just so that they pick it up naturally. So I think with singing, it's more than just gradually absorbing it, and it's like a sponge, you know, getting all those different sounds in and then feeling comfortable to have a go. So I think not putting them on the spot and going, right, you need to sing.
And exactly this.
Exactly.
Right.
It just needs to be an exploration together.
যেটা বলছে বাসায় বাচ্চার সাথে কাজ করার জন্য পুরো জিনিসটাকে একটু ফান ভাবে করতে হবে, কারণ এমনও হতে পারে যেটাও দেখালো যে সিঁড়িতে যখন উঠছেন এক একটা সাউন্ড করছেন। আমার একটা I am bringing up one of my example. I had a shower song for my son because he used to be very scared of the showers. Like he had some sensory issue when the water would hit his body, like he couldn't take it. So I knew he loves music. So আমার ছেলে খুবই গান পছন্দ করতো, কিন্তু শাওয়ার ভয় পেত। সো আমি একটা গান বানিয়েছিলাম। So there are different ways, as you said, like daily routine things you can use music in. So I had a song that I made up with him, and he was so concentrating on the song that he even forgot that he was taking a shower. So there are little opportunities around the house that, you know, us parents can use. And speech delay. Every time I'm hearing speech, there's so much we can teach them by singing. While in terms of labeling, for example, I taught my son how to memorize my phone number, my address, because that was important to me that he knew if he was lost. So I turned that into a fun song. So the numbers are memorizing. When you put a tune, say, like, it becomes very easy. So there are many fun ways to do it. Or counting, you know, which is very boring. You can, if you do it with music, children have fun. So, and I think YouTube has a lot of, especially for younger children, like how to work with speech or different concepts. YouTube has many songs already made for you. So we can definitely use that. What would you say?
Yeah, no, totally. And I think it's just like so important to think, how do I make this fun?
Right.
So this is like all the way through what I say about this stuff. It's like it shouldn't feel like it's them even learning.
Right.
Actually, that's the beauty of it.
Yeah, because every question I'm reading, how can I teach? I think we need to take that teach part of out and like, how can I, you know, enjoy music with my child and like make it a fun activity?
How can we share musical experiences together?
Right.
I think that's the key.
That's the right, yeah. So যেটা রুথ বলছে এবং আমিও তার সাথে সহমত যে আমরা যে বাচ্চাদের গান শেখানোর ব্যাপারটা না করে দেখতে হবে যে বাচ্চারা এনজয় করছে কিনা। এবং এই স্পিচ ডিলের ব্যাপারে কিন্তু অনেক কিছু গানের মাধ্যমে অ্যাচিভ করা সম্ভব। আমি নিজের পার্সোনাল এক্সপিরিয়েন্স থেকে কিছু বলছিলাম যে দেখা গেল আমার বাচ্চা ভয় পেত শাওয়ার করতে, আমি ওটা গানের মাধ্যমে তাকে ডিস্ট্রাক্ট করতাম। বা বাসায় অনেক কিছুই আমরা করি, ওটার মধ্যেও যদি আমরা গান নিয়ে আসি তখন দেখা যায় যে গান শিখছে এই ব্যাপারটা মাথায় রেখে না, ও একটা একটা অ্যাক্টিভিটি আপনার সাথে করছে, একটা ফান একটা অ্যাক্টিভিটি করছে, ওভাবে কিন্তু খুব সুন্দর করে মিউজিক ব্যবহার করে আমরা অনেক কিছু স্পিচের বেলায় ডেভেলপ করতে পারি এবং আরো কিছু সেন্সিটিভিটি থাকলে ওগুলো ব্যাপারে আমরা কাজ করতে পারি। পরবর্তী প্রশ্ন হচ্ছে আচরণগত সমস্যা দূরকরণে গানের কি কোনো ভূমিকা আছে কিনা? This is also a parent's a great question. So behavioral any issues if there's the child has behavioral problems, can singing be used in that case to modify that behavior or correct that behavior?
Yes, I think there's lots of ways that music and singing can have a really strong calming effect. And also, as you said before, a calm, like a distraction as well from maybe something that's triggering you.
Mm-hmm.
So I think noticing where those times are and sort of like the things that are tricky, incorporating different music activities with that, like you said with the shower example, is really important. I think it's just making sure that they're in a safe space that they feel comfortable with. And I think often, you know, singing is an easier access point than using musical instruments if there's behavioural issues, because there's potential using percussion instruments that a drumstick could suddenly become
get your aggression.
Yeah. and they might find the drumsticks really fun to start off with, then it goes a bit too far with the excitement. So doing something which is actually more to do with actions and using Makaton signing and something that's physical and dance based, using your voice, is something that people would feel more comfortable doing because there's not that risk of them hurting themselves as well.
Right. তো যেটা বলছে যে এটা মিউজিকের একটা কামিং এফেক্ট থাকে, তো অনেক ক্ষেত্রে অবশ্যই আমরা বিহেভিয়ার স্পেসিফিক বিহেভিয়ার সমস্যা দূর করতেও মিউজিক ব্যবহার করতে পারি। So like even I guess another behavior issue that we constantly hear, and especially because of the lockdown we hear a lot, is hyperactivity. And movement and music, I think, plays a great role in reducing the anxiety, hyperactivity, um, mood swings. Like in so many ways, these kind of behavioral issues that a lot of parents are facing, is in the routine itself. If there is movement and um, music, and yet I do this every day on a daily basis. Both of my children have to go into one of the websites or YouTube and do the kids exercise or a dance. They're into Bollywood movies, so I play the music and they just dance around. So there are many behaviors that we can stop before they can even happen by kind of regulating all these energies. Would you say, like, any suggestions in terms of that?
I think it's great if you can use music and playing these things and giving dancing opportunities through the day as a way of giving a release from that
Mhm.
feeling of confinement. And I think, you know, every child is different, so it's really important that you see what works with your child. But
Mhm.
creating a musical playlist where, for instance, it starts off not being too
Too
energetic,
much.
it's really
Mhm.
energetic, so they get
And then
really
cooling
the
off.
have lots of fun and cooling off exactly afterwards. So you've not got like loads of energy bouncing around the room.
Right, right.
And
Mhm.
music is so good at regulating that as well. So you can really create this rise of energy and fall
Mhm.
off. And that's part of the activity. So getting them to do slower, more smooth activities as part of the music then doesn't even feel like you're saying, you need to calm down now. It's
Right,
just part of what's happening, you know, and
right,
they'll calm just because of the effect of the music.
right,
So some kids might not need that, you know, and they might really want a lot of really energetic stuff. So it really depends on your child what you think
right.
works.
Or even with like sleep schedules, you can work with like soothing. Now they sell for adults these, sound of, like, say, like the sea waves, or like the soothing sound of the fan going. So, like, there's a lot of ways you can use to help you in different moods. So
Yeah,
um,
you could even turn it into like a musical story, and you tell a story whilst you've got this background effect on, so that the music has that calming effect at bedtime, sort of with a story as
mhm.
well. It's combining everything together in a more sensory way.
Right. So the next question, just to summarize, যেটা বলছে যে অবশ্যই মিউজিকের মাধ্যমে অনেক কিছু করা সম্ভব। দেখা গেল যে আহ, কোনো কোনো ক্ষেত্রে আমাদের বাচ্চাদের চাহিদাটা কি বুঝতে হবে, যে ও কোন ধরনের বিহেভিয়ারটা আপনি নিয়ে কাজ করছেন। সেই ক্ষেত্রে অবশ্যই মিউজিকের কামিং কিছু এফেক্ট আছে ঘুমানোর ব্যাপারে, বা যখন ওকে এনার্জি দেওয়ার জন্য আপনি বিভিন্ন ধরনের মিউজিক ব্যবহার করে কিন্তু বিভিন্ন ধরনের আচরণগত সমস্যা নিয়ে কাজ করতে পারেন। So the next question is very important to me. I'm just going to read it in Bengali first. আমাদের মুসলিম সমাজে মিউজিককে ইসলাম বিরোধী কার্যক্রম হিসেবে দেখা হয়, যার ফলে বাবা মা দ্বিধাদ্বন্দ্বে ভোগে যে বাচ্চাকে গান শোনানোর ব্যাপারটা নিয়ে। আমার বাচ্চার ক্ষেত্রে তাই হয়েছে। এই প্রতিকূলতা থেকে আমরা কিভাবে বেরিয়ে আসবো, এক্ষেত্রে পরিবার ও পরিবার পারিশ্রিকতা কিভাবে কাজ করতে পারে। So basically it's talking a little bit about our society. As you know, Bangladesh is predominantly Muslim, and and we have this thing where music is seen as it's going against the religion. So this parent is saying that in the house facing a lot of issues with that, because um, as well as the society, as well as in the family itself, music is seen as something against the religion. So how can we change this stigma or this point of view that culturally? So I guess you can put your opinion, and I have it as well, because
Yeah. It's a really tricky one, because you always want to do something that you feel is appropriate to, you know, your beliefs and your cultural background. And in the UK, there's lots of Muslim families who would have similar views, who I work with the children of in school doing music, that they would prefer not to do that at home. and obviously you should always respect other people in your family's views. But also, I think views are changing because there's so much positive feedback from musical interventions that I think attitudes are changing. And I would say, thinking about if there are ways that you can sort of respectfully use perhaps religious music from your own culture and using that as an access point into musical activities is a great thing. And also, some of the sorts of activities that I do which encourage call and response, some of them aren't specifically a piece of music, it's more about heightened sound. So those activities, we put it in the framework of music. You can still benefit from those things without it actually being, listening to a piece of popular music. It's more about verbal interaction.
যে ব্যাপারটা রুথ পয়েন্ট আউট করলো, অবশ্যই সে বলবে যে পারিপার্শ্বিকতা এবং সমাজের সবার যে ওপিনিয়ন আছে ওগুলোকে অবশ্যই আমাদের ভ্যালু করতে হবে এবং ওগুলোর সাথে তাল মিলিয়ে আমাদের চলতে হবে। এবং ও বলছে যে ওরা যে বেনিফিট গুলো পাচ্ছে মিউজিকের মাধ্যমে, স্পেশালি যেসব বাচ্চাদের and the child has ASD and cerebral palsy. So it seems to me that the parents, they do understand the use of music but is in a dilemma. So যেটা বলছিল যে এটা অনেক রেসপেক্টফুলি ভাবেও অন্যদের কথা মাথায় রেখেও কাজ করা সম্ভব। ওর কাজগুলো করার সময় ইউনাইটেড কিংডমেও সে মুসলিম ফ্যামিলিদের সাথে কাজ করেছে, যেখানে তারা স্কুলে এই মিউজিক নিয়ে কাজ করতে দিয়েছে কিন্তু বাসায় কোনো কাজ করতে আগ্রহী হয়নি এই একই কারণে। এবং সেটার ক্ষেত্রে ও বলছে যে ও যে কাজটা করে ওখানে কিন্তু দেখা যাচ্ছে সব সাউন্ডের ব্যবহারটা হচ্ছে, ওরকম যে কোনো গান ব্যবহার হচ্ছে তাও না। এবং এছাড়াও আমরা যেটা করতে পারি আমার বোঝা মতে, আমাদের কিন্তু ইসলামের সীমাবদ্ধতার মধ্যে থেকেও কিন্তু কিছু হামনাত আছে, বা আমরা যদি ওগুলো যদি ব্যবহার করি, যেমন আজান যে আমরা ইয়ে করি, এগুলোর মধ্যেও কিন্তু ওই কমিং এফেক্টটা থাকে, বা কোনো সূরা যখন আমরা রিসাইট করি ফ্রম কোরআন, ওটার মধ্যেও কিন্তু অনেক ধরনের ডিফারেন্ট টোনেশন থাকে। ওটার মাধ্যমেও কিন্তু আমরা বাচ্চাদেরকে অনেক কিছু যেই ব্যবহারটা মানে আমরা চাচ্ছি, যে কমিং এফেক্টটা চাচ্ছি, ওটা কিন্তু পেতে পারি। এছাড়া ওর কাজে যে কিছু এক্সাম্পল দিচ্ছিল, যে সিঁড়িতে আমরা উঠছি তখন the example that you brought when you're going up the stairs and you're just saying la la la, so it's not necessarily a song, it's just you are using that to get the interaction from the child. So ওরকম ভাবে যদি আমরা বাচ্চার ইন্টারাকশন বাড়ানোর জন্য কিছু শব্দের ব্যবহার করি, হয়তো এটা আপনার রেসপেক্টফুলি করা হবে আপনার পরিবারে। বাট আমরা যেটা দেখতে পাচ্ছি, আমরা যত আরো জানছি, যত আরো শিখছি, আমাদের কিন্তু এই অ্যাটিটিউডটা আমাদের চেঞ্জ হচ্ছে। এন্ড আই উড সাজেস্ট ফ্রম আ পার্সোনাল পয়েন্ট অফ ভিউ যে একটা কনভারসেশন আপনি আপনার পরিবারের সাথে করা উচিত, যেখানে আপনি আলাপ করবেন যে আচ্ছা আমার বাচ্চার এই ডায়াগনোসিসটা আছে এবং ওর জন্য এই জিনিসটা এতখানি বেনিফিট হবে। এবং সেই ক্ষেত্রে আমার মনে হয় যে সুন্দর মতো একটা কনভারসেশন গেলে পরিবার একটু হলেও বোঝার চেষ্টা করবে যে এই মিউজিকের ব্যবহারে যদি তার স্পিচ, তার বিভিন্ন ধরনের বিহেভিয়ারাল ইস্যুস, তার বিভিন্ন ধরনের কমিউনিকেশন ইস্যুস, তার ডেভেলপমেন্টের জন্য খুব ভালো হয়, তাহলে হয়তো কিছু মত চেঞ্জ হয়ে যেতে পারে। এবং অবশ্যই আমরা আশা করব যে আপনারা পরিবার সবাই মিলে বসে এই বাচ্চাটির জন্য যেটা ভালো হবে সেটি আপনারা করবেন। So I'm just suggesting to have a conversation with the family and to really sit down and understand the diagnosis, that as a family we have to really try, especially parents have to really try to provide the best resources and as early as possible, because for this child who's 16 years, or if these are going to be the tools that's going to help him communicate or teach him how to be independent or facilitate in any learning, that we need to really value that as a family, and there needs to be a conversation happening in the society and also in a family itself, because that's what Child Foundation started this for, because the stigma relating to special needs and various other topics, we need to talk about it and bring the awareness. So
and just to back that up as well, actually, the framework that I use in the UK is called Sound of Intent. It's a set of 72 different musical targets to aid development, And the UK government, the Department of Education, has acknowledged that it's incredibly helpful and have recommended for schools in the UK to use it. So it's a new thing that we're all learning about at the moment because research is evolving, but the UK is very keen for this to become embedded in education at the moment.
Right, and we hope that Bangladesh follows, these great examples from, UK, USA, where the studies are happening and they're actually seeing the benefit in front of their eyes in children's development. So I'm going to go to the next question. So গান শেখাতে গেলে গানের কথাগুলো বারবার রিপিট করে এ ব্যাপারে কি করব? এবং কথাগুলো উচ্চারণে অনেক সমস্যা হয়, কিন্তু সে গানের প্রতি খুবই আগ্রহী, এক্ষেত্রে কিভাবে করতে পারি? So this child is 18 plus and has ASD. So when he's trying to, or when the parent is trying to teach a song, he repeats the words a lot. And so what do we do about this repetition of words? And I hear this a lot, that it's not so like they're singing, but they're almost like repeating phrases or humming. So what are your suggestions for these children?
I think that it's to do with repetition and familiarity. If somebody enjoys that bit of the song and they're repeating it back, that's a sign of enjoyment. And it's great that that's happening, and it doesn't matter if they're not fully singing a song. If they're engaged with it, that is a massive achievement, that they're remembering parts of the song. And in the development framework that I use, you see it is a gradual evolution. So to start off, children will recognize that you're doing a few notes. So like, and they'll recognize that and they'll be able to repeat that. Then the next level up, they'd be able to do a whole phrase. Then a next level up from that, and the next level up from that would be able to sing a whole song. Right. And I think it's important that we don't expect too much too soon. If someone's latching on to particular little short motifs, that is fantastic. And it's part of their evolution to take that further. If a child's becoming fixated on the particular song, though, and it's becoming problematic, I would say, avoid listening to that song in particular if it's going to become a behavioural issue.
Right.
In terms of their development, it's fantastic if they're picking up on a bit of it. And you should be pleased with that and encouraging them to engage with it more. And it may be that over time they will be able to sing the whole song, and you just need to let them do it in their own time rather than put the expectations of a neurotypical child's practice onto them.
And also, we have to be careful with the reaction we also give them, oh, stop doing that or not doing that. That might be the reaction that they're seeking, and that's why they're repeating as well, as in a reinforcement point of view. So we have to be, as you said, if we stop listening to that music, they will probably move on. But we all learn by repeating. Whenever we learn, that's how we, we want to be comfortable with one part and then to build on it. So we have to give them that time as well.
Yeah. Also, I think particularly if a child has a neurotypical sibling, they can be very sensitive to seeing that they can't do the thing as well as their brother or sister. Sometimes they don't, or someone else in their class who's just done something, and they're actually stopping themselves from even trying to do something sometimes because they don't want to be seen to fail. And sometimes it's better to not even try it than to do it wrong. And that can really inhibit your own development. So I think praising someone for having done that little bit of something is so important to get them to do it again, and then they might do the whole song,
যেটা বলছে যে রিপিট করছে, সেটা সবসময় খারাপ ব্যাপার না, কারণ রিপিট করছে তার মানে যদি ও রিপিট করতে পারে, এটাও কিন্তু আমাদের বুঝতে হবে যেটা খুব ভালো একটা জিনিস। কারণ আমরা যখন কোনো গান শিখি বা আমরা কিন্তু ভেঙে ভেঙে ওটা শিখে তারপরে ওটার উপর বিল্ড আপ করি। আমাদের কেয়ারফুল থাকতে হবে যে অনেক ক্ষেত্রে আমরা দেখা যাবে যে ওকে সামনের পার্টটা শেখানোর জন্য তাড়াতাড়ি করানোর চেষ্টা করছি, কিন্তু ওদেরকে নিজেদের টাইম অনুযায়ী করতে দিতে হবে। কারণ দেখা যাচ্ছে তখন ওর খারাপ লাগতে পারে যে দেখা গেল ওর বাসায় ওর ভাই বোনরা হয়তো তাড়াতাড়ি শিখে ফেলছে, ও শিখতে পারছে না, ওটা হতে পারে, বা ক্লাসের অন্য কারোর মতো শিখতে পারছে না। যদি ও রিপিট করতে থাকে নিজেকে শেখানোর জন্য, তাহলে আমাদের অবশ্যই সেটা খুব ভালো একটা সাইন মনে করতে হবে যে সে শিখতে পারছে, সে রিপিট করতে পারছে। কিন্তু যদি মনে হয় যে না, সে ওখানেই আটকে গেছে এবং ওটাই বারবার রিপিট করছে কারণ অবসেশনের মতো হয়ে গেছে, তখন ওই গানটা থেকে দূরে থাকতে হবে, কারণ যাতে ও ওই গানটার সাথে আটকে না যায়। এবং দেখা যাবে পরবর্তীতে ও আস্তে আস্তে সেটা ভুলে যাবে। The second part of the same parent is that there's like um, articulation issue, like the way he's pronouncing the words, but is very interested in music. So how can that be worked out?
I think if there's particular words and sounds that are tricky for that child, that creates a great opportunity to make games out of those sounds. And like, if you're working with a speech therapist, they would be able to give specific exercises, obviously. But from a music perspective at home, like W can be quite a difficult sound in English, like going wah, wah, because it's moving the mouth so much. But turning it into just sound effects, wah, 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 wow, wow, and doing that sort of sound and trying to get like responses of doing that sort of with younger children particularly, but with older children they may be interested in this too. Then that's getting them used to making those sounds in an environment where it's not in the song. Used to the physicality of doing that to then be able to bring it into the song later.
ওকে, সো কিছু এক্সাম্পল দিল যে আমরা স্পেসিফিক এই শব্দগুলো নিয়ে কাজ করতে পারি ভাষায়, যে উচ্চারণে যে সমস্যাটা হচ্ছে। আর এক্ষেত্রে আমরা স্পিচ থেরাপিস্টের সাথেও কাজ করি, কিন্তু যে প্রোনাউন্সিয়েশনের ব্যাপারটা, সো কিছু কিছু শব্দ দেখা যায় বাচ্চাদের জন্য কঠিন হয়ে থাকে, ওগুলো নিয়ে আমরা কিন্তু ও যেভাবে ডেমনস্ট্রেট করলো সেটাকে প্র্যাকটিস করার জন্য বিভিন্ন ভাবে কিন্তু আমরা ওই উচ্চারণের ব্যাপারগুলো কাজ করতে পারি বাসায়। সো how to give music therapy is the next question. And can music therapy be given at home? And this is a parent of a 7-year-old with ASD. So I guess we can talk about this in terms of like music therapy, and as opposed to, you talked a little bit about it, like, how it's a little bit different, but I guess what I'm sensing is, can we use music at home? Like,
Sure.
you can also tell us what you think, like the difference with music therapy and what you do is.
Yeah, I mean, for instance, you might be, as a music therapist, you might be looking into things like coordination as an outcome, improving coordination. And so through activities that I do, if I have a child who has limited mobility, I may just create a game to help them explore that themselves, very similar way that a music therapist might. So having two different instrument sounds for the child to go between and like hit the instrument is helping them coordinate, because they get this immediate response from being able to get that interesting sound from an instrument. We've done conducting activities with a child who have very limited movement in one of their shoulders, and because they really wanted to conduct some music, they moved their arm. So these are examples of how like music can aid in sort of a therapeutic way, even though you're not a therapist yourself. It's just a motivator for physical.
And anyone can do that at home as parents.
Yeah,
right? Okay.
exactly. And it's just creating the opportunity for them to do that. I say in terms of leading an activity yourself at home, I think make sure that you don't make the activities too long and suit it to the concentration span of your child, because it's much better a very short session that they really enjoy and they're engaged with, and do that more regularly, than to try and get them to do too much in one go, and then they have negative associations with doing activities. So, you might start off with just doing one song that's very lively, that they like, and playing the drum or clapping or dancing along with that. And as they become more engaged with that, you can extend the sessions out. But I think doing a lot of stuff which goes between movements, rhythms, and loud and quiet, or fast and slow, and speeding up and slowing down within playing your drum, those contrasts are the things that really interest the kids and draw them into it. And it's exploring those contrasts to start off that gets them hooked.
তো যেটা বলছি যে অবশ্যই বাসায় কিছু কিছু কাজ করা সম্ভব, আর ও কিছু এক্সাম্পল দিল যে আমরা মিউজিকের মাধ্যমে বাচ্চাদের বিভিন্ন এরিয়া নিয়ে কাজ করতে পারি, যে যে বাচ্চা লিমিটেড মুভমেন্ট করতে পারছে না তার জন্য আমরা এরকম কিছু অ্যাক্টিভিটি করতে পারি যেটা তার হাত মুভ করতে হচ্ছে বা কিছু বাজাতে হচ্ছে। তো এটা বাচ্চাদের অনুযায়ী আমরা সেটা দেখে বাচ্চাটা কি প্রয়োজন সেটার ক্ষেত্রে আমরা মিউজিকে ব্যবহার করতে পারি। আরেকটা জিনিস ওর সাজেশন হচ্ছে যে খুব বেশি লম্বা যাতে আমরা না করি, কারণ দেখা যায় বাচ্চাদের অ্যাটেনশন খুব কম থাকে। বেশি লম্বা হয়ে গেলে দেখা গেল বাচ্চাটা যে মজা করছে ওই ব্যাপারটা কমে গেলে আর কিন্তু আমরা এফেক্টিভলি কিছু শেখাতে পারছি না। So these were all the questions from the parents. Now I have a few questions from teachers, and then we will be done. I know you are probably quite tired of talking already, but I'm learning so much, so it's been fun for me. So a lot of teachers are also listening from this live, and the question that came, the first question I think is very good. Music class, is it good in groups? And for example, there are kids in the classroom who would touch the ears. There, I guess it's in a specific situation that the teacher is explaining, but doesn't want to be stepped away from the class as well. So how can I work with that child in that group? So the first part is music class is good in a group setting, and then how to deal with this child. তো প্রশ্নটা হচ্ছে যে মিউজিক ক্লাস কি গ্রুপে ভালো হয় কিনা, এবং অনেক ছাত্র কানে হাত দিয়ে থাকে কিন্তু অন্য জায়গায় সরিয়ে রাখতে চাইলে থাকতে চায় না, এক্ষেত্রে কি করব?
Okay, so first of all, I think group sessions can be really, really beneficial to children being able to see their peers with a similar disability to themselves participating successfully, and it can encourage those who are shyer to participate. So group sessions, I think, are absolutely crucial, but you need to be very aware about the mix of abilities in the group and how to keep everyone engaged at the same time. So as a result, I normally work in groups of between 5 and 10 children, so it's maximum. Often it's better to have a shorter session with a group of 5, so everyone has a chance going around the group and don't.
So when you say shorter session, what's the duration there?
So often I would do 20 or 30-minute session with a group of 5, and it would be better to do 2 of those sessions with a group of 5 rather than doing an hour with 10 children. Like, some children would be able to do a session for that long, but I think there just is a lot of waiting around if you want them to have individual chances to have a go on things within the group, because you're working around a whole group of 10. So I think 5 is a really good number, and you can also split them into 2 groups, or have like people doing an accompanying activity on the drum while someone else is taking a solo role or conducting the group. Yeah, so it offers lots of opportunities to encourage interaction. Now, having said that, you might find that there are children in the group who are less comfortable being in that group situation. So often I would take those children for an individual session before the main group, just maybe 5 minutes, and to introduce a song to them or an activity so that they're comfortable doing it in their own space, picking it up in their own time. And then when you bring them back into the group, you go, okay, now we're going to sing Ibrahim's song. Yeah, and you sing the song, good morning, good morning, good morning, Ibrahim, and they play their drum thing, whatever that you've done with them individually, and then they feel part of the session. They're demonstrating to everybody else, and then everyone else gets to go afterwards. So actually having that individual time and using it carefully can then make that person do a group session when they might not have considered doing it before, and it becomes possible.
All right. So then যেটা রুথ বলছে যে অবশ্যই গ্রুপে করাটা খুবই ক্রুশাল, এবং সে সাজেস্ট করছে যে 5 থেকে 10 জন বাচ্চার সাথে সে কাজ করে অনেক ক্ষেত্রে, এবং সেশন গুলোকে ছোট রাখতে, এবং সেটা সে বলছে যে 20 থেকে 30 মিনিটের হওয়া উচিত, এবং খেয়াল রাখতে হবে যে কোন অ্যাবিলিটি বাচ্চাদেরকে একসঙ্গে মিক্স করেছেন। এছাড়াও বলছে যে যখন আপনি কিছু কিছু বাচ্চার ক্ষেত্রে আপনারা প্রথমে ওয়ান অন ওয়ান করে তারপর তাদেরকে গ্রুপে যদি নিয়ে আসেন এবং সে দেখালো যে সেই বাচ্চাটাকে দিয়ে যদি সে ডেমনস্ট্রেট করলো, তখন দেখা যাবে সে ওই গ্রুপে কাজ করতে আরো হয়তো ভালো বোধ করবে। এবং এই একই টিচারের কাছ থেকে আরো কোয়েশ্চেন আছে, মিউজিক থেরাপির সময় মিউজিক ক্লাসটা কেমন হবে? সো দিস ইজ আ ভেরি স্পেসিফিক কোয়েশ্চেন, লাইক ও হাউ ডু ইউ set the class, which I think is a great time for me to kind of tell our viewers like what our project was going to be in Bangladesh. So um, basically আমাদের রুথের সাথে এবং আমাদের একটি প্রজেক্ট নিয়ে কাজ চলছে, এবং প্যান্ডেমিকের কারণে আমাদের প্রজেক্টটি পিছিয়ে গেছে, কিন্তু অবশ্যই হবে। সেখানে আমরা যেটা হচ্ছিল যে রুথ এবং চাইল্ড ফাউন্ডেশনের সাথে যে কোলাবোরেশন হচ্ছিল, ব্রিটিশ কাউন্সিল এবং আর্টস কাউন্সিল ইউকে এবং ট্রান্সফর্মিং নারেটিভ, এই তিনটে অর্গানাইজেশনের কোলাবোরেশনে আমরা একটি ইভেন্ট অর্গানাইজ করেছিলাম, যেটা এপ্রিলে হওয়ার কথা ছিল। সেখানে আমরা চাচ্ছিলাম যে সেখানে বাচ্চাদের কে আমরা আনবো, এবং সেখানে 30টি বাচ্চা, সেখানে নন ভার্বাল এবং ভার্বাল বাচ্চা বোথ থাকবে, এবং আমরা গ্রুপে গ্রুপে এই যে রুথ কাজগুলো করছে, কিভাবে মিউজিক ব্যবহার করছে, সেখানে কিছু টিচার্সদের ও থাকার কথা ছিল অবজার্ভ করার জন্য এই থেরাপি গুলো কিভাবে করা হয়, যাতে আমরা এই ওয়ার্কশপের মাধ্যমে বাচ্চাদেরকে দেখাতে পারি, প্যারেন্টসদেরকে দেখাতে পারি যে কিভাবে মিউজিকে ব্যবহার করে আমরা বাচ্চাদের সাথে কাজ করতে পারবো। So I guess if that event happened, a lot of teachers would have had the opportunity to see you in action and how this classes actually work, and or give them a little bit of hands-on experience on how to design these music classes so that the kids can benefit from it. So would you like to talk about a little bit about, well, but I hope nobody is disheartened, because as soon as we have clearance with the pandemic being safe for you to travel to Bangladesh, you will be joining us in Bangladesh to work with children, parents, and teachers, showing the great work that you do already in UK. Do you want to share anything else about it?
Yeah, so what I try and do is enable the pupils to experience lots of different sounds and different contrasts in music, so that they can understand what their preferences are within the group. So starting off with introductory activities with rhythms where they can copy and they get to explore different sorts of percussion instruments is important. And then during those sessions, you can get an understanding of what their preferences are and what their role could be in a group activity later on. So if someone really likes the sounds of the maracas, that's their job in a group piece. And it's about using activities at the start of the session to see what the opportunities for that child to participate in a musical game are, and giving everybody a role within the group that's suitable to their level. So some of the more advanced children may be able to pick up the whole chorus of a song that you're learning. The non-verbal ones won't be able to, but they could use a rain stick or an ocean drum, which is a really sensory sound that they can use to be involved in the session at their own level and in a way that they feel comfortable. And it's about layering those sounds up and getting everyone involved and being able to pull them out to have a solo within the group as well. That's important. So it's really, every session is different, and it's about creating, I think, a toolkit of different musical sounds that you can use in a session with children, and letting the session take its journey dependent on how the children feel that day and how they respond. And for me, I go into the session with these ideas, that the more effective sessions always happen when you're listening as much as possible to how the children are responding, and perhaps they change the rhythm from what you were playing, you change to their rhythm, and then they've taken charge and they feel even more involved in that activity. So they may sing a song to you. Let's sing that song. You don't have to have a very clear path within the session. So I say, always think, I've got a range of activities, and let the children move you around.
তো কিছু সাজেশন এখানে আমরা শুনলাম, আপনাদের কিছু কমেন্টস আমি পড়ছিলাম, আপনাদের সবাইকে ধন্যবাদ। যেটাও বলছে যে মিউজিক ক্লাস, প্রশ্নটা ছিল কিভাবে হবে, এটা ব্যাপারটা হচ্ছে যে এটা দেখতে হবে যে কোন বাচ্চাদের সাথে কাজ করছেন, এবং এটা কিন্তু ডেইলি বেসিসে চেঞ্জও হতে থাকবে, যে ওই দিনটা আপনি কি করতে চাচ্ছেন। এটা আগে থেকে, যেটা ও একটা খুব ভালো কথা বললো, যে সবকিছু যে আপনি যেভাবে ক্লাসটা ডিজাইন করছেন ওটাই যে করতে হবে তা না, বাচ্চারা কি করছে এবং আপনার সাথে কিভাবে রেসপন্ড করছে ওটার উপরও ডিপেন্ড করবে যে আপনি আগামীতে কি করবেন। অনেক ক্ষেত্রে ও বলছে যে ওদেরকে কিছু করতে বলার চেয়ে ওরা কি করছে এটা শোনা জরুরি, এবং সেখান থেকে আপনি বিল্ড করতে পারবেন। এটা আসলে এই প্রশ্নটা আরো ডিটেলে যাওয়া সম্ভব, কারণ আম, বিভিন্ন বাচ্চাদের বিভিন্ন রিকোয়ারমেন্ট থাকে এবং বিভিন্ন বাচ্চাদের বিভিন্ন সেন্সিটিভিটি লেভেল থাকে। I'm just saying that there are so much more that can be discussed. We can actually do a session on how to different in different ways of designing it. So a lot of teachers want to know, because teachers, when they work, they want to do it properly so kids are getting most out of it. And that's why I want that they stay connected with us so they can participate in the workshop when we will be coming to Bangladesh. তো যেটা আমি বলছি যে আপনাদের টিচারদের অনেক প্রশ্ন এখানে আছে, কারণ আপনারা বাচ্চাদের সাথে যখন কাজ করেন আপনারা আরো ভালোভাবে কাজ করার জন্য আরো বেশ কিছু জিনিস জানতে চান, শিখতে চান। সেজন্যই আমরা চাইল্ড ফাউন্ডেশনের তরফ থেকে এবং ব্রিটিশ কাউন্সিলের সাথে কোলাবোরেশনে আমরা ওয়ার্কশপটি অর্গানাইজ করেছিলাম। আশা করব যে আগামীতে হবে, এবং আপনারা সবাই আমাদের সাথে যোগাযোগ রাখবেন, যেখানে আপনার ভার্বাল এবং নন ভার্বাল বাচ্চারা পার্টিসিপেট করতে পারবে এবং টিচার্সরা এসে অবজার্ভ করতে পারবে, শিখতে পারবে, এবং প্যারেন্টসরাও জানতে পারবে যে মিউজিক কিভাবে ব্যবহার করে অনেক কিছু করা সম্ভব। There are a few small questions from another teacher. I don't want to leave it behind. So there was a question that there's a from the same teacher. There's a child after the class is over gets very upset. So the transitioning is an issue. Is there any tip for a smooth transition? টিচারটা বলছে যে বাচ্চাটা যখন মিউজিক ক্লাস শেষ হয়ে যায় অনেক রাগ করে থাকে, সুতরাং ওই ক্ষেত্রে মিউজিক শেষ হওয়ার পরে তার যে রাগটা যে হয় এটা কিভাবে আমরা ঠিক করতে পারবো। তাকে কি আলাদা আরেকটা প্রশ্ন আছে যে মিউজিক ক্লাস এবং থেরাপিকে আলাদা হওয়া উচিত কিনা। So the second part of the same question is whether music class and therapy should be separately done.
Okay, so in terms of how to help with the transitions, I think it's really good to be consistent in the structure of your sessions. So at the start of the session, you have the same hello or good morning song or welcome song that you sing every week to signal the start. And then likewise at the end of the session, you have a goodbye song or music has finished song that you sing a minute or two at the end. And you can go around the group and sing well done to every child so that they know that that session is coming to an end, and that 2 minutes is actually doing that transition. Now, for some children, that may not be long enough and may not work, but having that consistency on an ongoing basis, hopefully, make it easier to help with that transition, because you're signposting them very clearly every single time you do that the activity is ending. So I think that's really important to incorporate within the lesson time, and having that ending. And then, sorry, the second question.
Second question was whether therapy classes and where you're trying to teach the music should be separately done.
I think it's great if there can be the two separate sessions. I mean, obviously, it depends on the provision of the school and financing and time. So everywhere's different. I think it's lovely to be able to support music therapy and speech therapy with music as a separate activity. Because like I said, my role, I come in and I'm sort of a disruptor in a way, because I go and do an activity which isn't what they were working on with their speech therapist, but it will make them potentially leap on ahead with something that you'd never expect. And I think it's lovely to keep it as a separate fun thing, because as I said earlier, they're not feeling like they're being judged and they're in an academic setting. And I think achievement through seemingly non-academic activities is really, really crucial. So they can be very similar, but with a completely different presentation.
Or goal. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's why many of the sessions here I see, even for my son's speech or OT or PT, there's a group session for that social communication, and then there's a one-on-one session to target on the specific areas that they want to work. So I'm guessing it's the same concept you're trying to share. So যেটা বলছে যে ও বলছে যে মিউজিক ক্লাস এবং থেরাপিটা আলাদা হলেই ভালো, কারণ দেখা যাচ্ছে থেরাপিটা হচ্ছে একটা কোনো স্পেসিফিক গোল বা টার্গেট নিয়ে কাজ করে থাকে, কিন্তু ক্লাসটা আসলে দেখা যায় বাচ্চারা এনজয় করার জন্য, সোশ্যালি সবাই গ্রুপের মধ্যে করার জন্য করে থাকে। সো এই ব্যাপারটা আসলে আলাদা রাখতে পারলেই মনে হয় বাচ্চাদের জন্য আরো ভালো হবে। So the next question we kind of answered, like who is music therapy good for, like who is it beneficial? Samra already, the whole discussion was about that, so I'm not going to go into it. I'm going to go to the next question. নন ভার্বাল বাচ্চাদের অনেকেরই গানের প্রতি আগ্রহ থাকে, এক্ষেত্রে তাদেরকে মিউজিক ক্লাসে পার্টিসিপেট করতে দেওয়া ও তার জন্য কি ব্যবস্থা রাখা যেতে পারে, যাতে সেও বুঝে যে সে পার্টিসিপেট করছে মিউজিক ক্লাসে। এই প্রশ্নটা আমরা অনেকভাবে বিভিন্ন উত্তরে পেয়েছি, তাও আমি জিজ্ঞেস করছি যে for non-verbal children, a lot of them are a lot like very interested in music, but how can we make them understand that they're participating in the class as well, even though they're non-verbal? So you have given us some great examples where they started to communicate with that. So any tips for this teacher for them to feel more involved in the participation?
A great way of aiding them to become involved is actually using a microphone, because it enables the child's voice to be projected, and microphone work is so valuable because it makes the sound also seem like it's outside of their body, so it's less of a personal thing. So actually a lot of children who may not sing in public are happy singing down a microphone, so that can be brilliant. I think also making sure that they have as much time doing the activities as the verbal children. If you're going around the group, enable them to do something which doesn't need them to sing, and let them feel like they've got the time to explore it. Maybe even give them a little bit more time than the verbal child, because it can, somebody who is less advanced, sometimes it takes them longer for their brain to process what's going on. And giving them that time is important, and being okay with silence. A lot of people, when they start delivering music sessions, think, I need to keep the pace of this up. And there needs to be a lot of variety to keep the child interested. And we're actually thinking from our own perspective as the person delivering the session, rather than as how the child is perceiving that session. And as we've said earlier, repetition and regularity is so important when you're learning, as that time, and not feeling embarrassed by the silence. And if you can see them thinking and maybe exploring, let them have that time.
And sometimes with non-verbal children, we automatically think they're not receiving anything. And that is not always correct, because what they're absorbing, we don't really know, because they're not letting us know, but they are absorbing in each session. So as you said, we have to give that time for them to really be comfortable in a setting and participate. তো কিছু কিছু সাজেশন নন ভার্বাল বাচ্চাদের জন্য, যখন টিচাররা কাজ করবেন বাচ্চাদের পার্টিসিপেশন বাড়ানোর জন্য মাইক্রোফোনে ব্যবহার করতে পারেন। এছাড়াও বলা হচ্ছে যে কিছু ক্ষেত্রে যে নন ভার্বাল বাচ্চাদেরকে সময়টা দিতে হবে একটু বেশি, কারণ ওদের হয়তো দেখা যাচ্ছে আমরা মনে করছি ওরা কিছু পার্টিসিপেট করছে না দেখে ওরা কিছু অবজার্ভ করতে পারছে না, এটা কিন্তু না। এবং আরেকটা যে জিনিসগুলো রুথ পয়েন্ট আউট করলো, যে রেগুলারিটিটা ইম্পর্টেন্ট, রিপিটেশনটা ইম্পর্টেন্ট, আমাদের মাথায় রাখতে হবে যে ওদেরকে সময় দিতে হবে, এবং ওরা দেখা যাবে অনেক ক্ষেত্রে ওই পার্টিসিপেট করার আগে কমফোর্টেবল হওয়ার পরে তারা সেটা করবে। তো এই ব্যাপারগুলো মাথায় রাখতে হবে। So another question, I guess, is similar to this, is that in inclusive learning. So what do you think about that? Like, do you think special needs children in an inclusive music class would benefit, where you have children that are nonverbal, and then
I think it's really important. I mean, just within special needs schools, having mixed ability classes enables children to participate within a group activity at their own level, but be part of a more complicated sound. And I think that really empowers them to feel that they're part of something which sounds great, even if their role in it is just playing a very simple rhythm on an instrument or playing a shaker. So I think that's really important. I feel very strongly about opportunities for neurotypical and neurodiverse children to be able to play and have activities together in sessions. Hence, the project that we were developing that happening soon, and other projects that I do in the UK. I think it's great for children to be able to do something as a whole family, and to be able to participate in their own way. And I think it's our role as the musicians and teachers to find a way of getting everybody involved at their level. And that takes a little bit of preparation and thought of the child's specific needs, but that investment of time makes such a difference about how the child can get things out of the session. Because I think, through seeing someone else doing something, that is a massive motivator for them to do it themselves. And if they're only in a class with children at their own level, they can see what might be possible for them in the future.
Right. থ্যাংক ইউ সো মাচ। যেটা রুথ বললো যে আমার মনে হয় যে অনুষ্ঠানের শেষে এই প্রশ্নটার উত্তরও খুব সুন্দর ভাবে এসেছে, যে ইনক্লুসিভ ক্লাসে অবশ্যই মিউজিক করা উচিত, কারণ অনেক ক্ষেত্রে বাচ্চারা অন্য বাচ্চাদেরকে দেখে উৎসাহিত হবে এবং অনেক কিছু শেখার থাকবে। হ্যাঁ, টিচার হিসেবে প্ল্যানিংটা একটু সময় নিয়ে করতে হবে, কিন্তু অবশ্যই ইনক্লুসিভ ক্লাস থেকে বাচ্চারা বেনিফিট করবে। So we are at the end of our sessions today, and thank you so much, Ruth, for your valuable time with us. And we will be seeing more of you in the future, hopefully in Bangladesh very soon when everything is okay, and you will get to work with children in Bangladesh and experience Bangladesh. We cannot wait for that. So thank you so much for your time. Any last thoughts? Then we can say our goodbyes.
Yeah. You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, thank you. আপনাদের সবাইকে অনেক অনেক ধন্যবাদ আমাদের সাথে থাকার জন্য। আপনাদের মধ্যে যদি আপনারা ইন্টারেস্টেড থাকেন রুথের এই প্রজেক্টটা যেটা চাইল্ড ফাউন্ডেশনের সামনে করছে, আপনারা আমাদেরকে ইনবক্স করতে পারেন, আমরা আপনাদের সাথে যোগাযোগ করব। অবশ্যই সামনে যখন আমাদের সিচুয়েশন আরো নরমাল হয়ে আসবে এবং আমরা এই রুথের সাথে এবং ব্রিটিশ কাউন্সিলের সাথে ইন কোলাবোরেশন যে আমাদের প্রজেক্টটা কাজ চলছে, এবং সেক্ষেত্রে আমরা খুবই আগ্রহ নিয়ে ওয়েট করছি রুথ বাংলাদেশে এসে আপনাদের সাথে তখন কাজ করতে পারবে। এছাড়াও আপনার আগামীতে কি টপিক আপনারা দেখতে চান আমাদেরকে ইনবক্স করুন, কমেন্টের মাধ্যমে জানান। আশা করি সবাই সুস্থ থাকবেন, ভালো থাকবেন। আল্লাহ হাফেজ।